You're listening to the Plant Code Podcast, brought to you by Max and Eric.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 5 of the Plant Code Podcast. I'm Max.
I'm Eric.
And we're super excited to be here,
Very
as
excited,
always.
yes.
Today we're going to be talking about honey.
Honey.
Wait, what's that even the lyrics to that
We
song?
should apply for voice instead of doing this.
Yeah, but important topic. A lot of people are going to think we're absolutely crazy for talking about honey, talking about bees. Like, oh, but there's so much more you could be talking about. But everyone's a critic these days.
Yeah, I think one of the most confusing topics when it comes to veganism is honey, because some people still decide to eat honey and some people decide to quit it. And I think there's a little bit of a gray area for a lot of people not necessarily knowing what the importance the bees have to our ecosystem and what they do.
And there's a myth around the fact that bees make honey for humans, as in their only purpose in life is to produce for us. But we think that about a lot of animals. We think all animals are there just for our use and consumption. Same with the cows. They think cows make milk just for humans.
Yeah, it's not like they gather around and be like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, today we have an estimate of around 15 liters that we have to produce for the village of yada yada. So the bees, they do make the honey for themselves.
Yeah, and honestly, honey is probably the last thing I stopped eating when I became vegan, because it didn't really cross my mind. And I don't know, it wasn't really as much of an argument. You don't hear as much about the cruelty aspects, about the impact that it has. So I was keep on eating my honey. And then I realized that if you're going to stop animal...
Max constantly laughing at his own poor jokes.
Terrible.
I apologize for that, ladies
Anyway,
and gentlemen.
I'm back.
He's back.
So then I realized that if I was going to follow a fully vegan lifestyle, I couldn't eat any animal products, and that included honey. And that's what made me want to do this episode and make other people understand as well what is going on in the honey industry.
Right. And I think it's actually a very interesting topic because I learned a lot of things that I didn't know before necessarily. So, what is honey? Well, according to Wikipedia, honey is a sweet, viscous food substance provided by bees and some related insects. Bees produce honey from the sugary secretions of plants, floral nectar, or from secretions of other insects by regurgitation, enzymatic activity, and water evaporation. Honey is collected from wild bee colonies or from hives of domesticated bees, a practice known as beekeeping or apiculture.
Well, I'm glad you read that, because that's a lot of long words. All I got from that is that basically honey is bee vomit.
Yeah, basically.
Because regurgitation is basically a long word to say
Yeah.
bee vomit.
This is obviously extracted from Wikipedia itself. That's why there's a lot of words probably that I don't even understand myself after having to look them up. So yeah, Max put it so delightfully as bee vomit.
Yeah, we like to simplify these things, we want to keep it accessible to the common man, such as ourselves. As always, here trying to make the complicated things simpler for ourselves more than anyone else.
That's true.
So now we know what it is. The second question we have to ask ourselves is, why do bees make honey? And like we said in our introduction, they don't make it just for humans. There are 7 main species of honeybees, because not all bees make honey, which I didn't know that as well. So the 7 main species, just so in case you're at a pub quiz one day and you need to find the answers to this question, these species are called the Africanized, the Buckfast, the Carnolian, the Caucasian, the Cordovan, the Italian, and the Russian.
I think the Italian is my favorite.
Are you just like flying around? I make the honey. Much love to all our Italian fans out there, by the way.
Thank you for listening.
So in short, basically, the only reason they make this honey is for hibernation. It's for winter. So they have food when it's cold and they don't have to go outside, like all animals do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so simple. Like, squirrels, they dig holes and they hide their nuts. Why can we never say nuts without laughing? It's so bad, man.
Because we are young and immature, but wise.
Yeah.
Bears, they sleep, for instance. They do tend to store some food, but mostly they sleep, they hibernate during the winter. And bees, they produce their food during the summer or during the fluorinating season and feast during the winter time.
And even we do it as well. I mean, we all put on a bit of fat during the winter, stock up a little bit for
Christmas
those
table.
cold days,
How do these incredible creatures actually make their honey?
Oh, this was like the most amazing thing that I was watching some videos about how they do it and understanding like the whole hierarchy and logic they have within their hives. Like, honestly, I even sound a bit weird to myself now being so intense about bees. But these creatures are fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, really. So I think, I don't know, maybe this is probably what I found the most interesting, is that the women do all the work.
Wow, they don't have much equal rights down in their hives.
Yeah, especially as the male bees. They're impregnating the queen bee to help make more bees, obviously. And the male bees are called drones. I just think that's so cool.
That's a cool word.
I wish I was a drone.
Maybe that's why the drones sound like bees. Digression once again. So how many bees does it require to function a whole hive?
Well, a hive can go between 10,000 to 60,000 bees.
That's a lot.
That is, I mean, can you imagine? That's like just one house. Imagine having like 60,000 people in your house.
It's a full football stadium.
Yeah.
Just swarming little things.
And they work non-stop. So we're going to share with you a few little fun facts about the bees and about the work in the hive that they do. So to produce a pound of honey, the bees have to fly approximately 55,000 miles.
Wow. So that's roughly 2 times around the world.
Yeah, and it's not just one bee flying around the world. That's the combined effort of all 60,000 of them.
Yeah.
And by the way, 1 pound is about 450 grams for our European friends here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had no idea what. I'm really struck this whole imperial and metric. I wish everyone could just agree, but I wish everyone could just agree on everything. You know?
True, that's true. I mean, otherwise, well, then we wouldn't have to do this podcast.
True. No purpose in life.
So they will go over 6 kilometers away to forage.
Which means to go and feed from the flowers, basically, and to get the nectar.
Yeah. And each honey will produce a estimate around of 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey in its life.
Each bee will produce 1/12. Yeah. I mean, that for me is the main reason not to eat honey. Because if you think, you put 1 teaspoon of honey in your tea, your coffee, your breakfast, that's the life's work of 12 bees. How depressing is that? And you just like stick it in there, then you take another one, put it straight in your mouth. That's 24 bees' life's art.
Yeah.
That you'll just in a second, you know.
Considering how hard they actually work. And that's despite the fact that a foraging honeybee visits up to 100 flowers per foraging trip.
These guys are so busy, man.
They are. Maybe that's why they got the name bees.
Maybe that's where busy came from.
That's what I'm thinking.
Mind blown.
Mind blowing. And it takes up to around 550 foraging bees to visit 2 million flowers just to make a pound of honey. And what was that in...
A pound of honey, 450 grams approximately.
Wow, very good. Quick maths. And over 1,000 bees to make a whole kilo.
That's incredible.
So mind blowing.
Yeah, like honestly, like these bees, like
incredible.
Yeah. So much respect for bees.
Yeah, definitely. We should. I mean, they are so important for our ecosystem, which we will get to the end of this as well. And also, honey is the only food made by insects, eaten by both insects themselves and by humans.
I mean, some humans do eat insects now as well.
Yeah, you go to Bangkok and you'll have a supermarket of them, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's for a different
Have you ever tried?
No, I've never eaten insects in my life. Apart from maybe when I was a kid, maybe by just, as you do.
On an average, a hive will produce about 65 pounds, which is approximately 29 kilos of honey per year. And in 2017, global production of honey was an estimate of 1.9 million tons. And that was led by China with 29% of the world total.
And it is increasing. The honey production, sadly, is going up every year. And people do think that you need to eat honey to keep bees alive, but that's kind of a misconception, the same way it is with milk. But let's move on to that, exactly about why we shouldn't eat honey. In a perfect world of the perfect beekeepers, they keep them near good sources of flowers, providing them with a pre-made beehive. They're protected from disease and raiding animals. They're provided with the supplemental food when they need it. And so, in this ideal world, on this small scale, these commercial hives produce far more honey than the bees actually need to survive the winter. So, in theory, the beekeeper could remove some of that honey, sell it, use it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the theory of, obviously, the small-scale production. I mean, still, I don't agree with the exploitation of the animal, but that's the thing. We don't live in that world anyway. It's like people say, what if I only eat eggs from a chicken at the bottom of my garden, or I only kill the one lamb that I had and I took care of and I gave an amazing life. That's a completely different debate because we're not in that problem. We're in a world where everything is produced on a massive scale in an industrial world. And that's the main problem that we have today, is that the impact on our planet and the animal welfare isn't taken into account. It's just a purely capitalistic thing.
Yeah, and I mean, just as in any organization, the Beehive is an organization. They work hard to produce, and if they have excess, they keep that for themselves. Just if a business produces more profit, they will keep that. They will share that amongst each other. But in that sense, I don't find it's right that we still take the excess. Even if they don't need it, we still take it.
I mean, let the bees give profit share, you know?
Exactly.
Let them give their employees a bonus.
Let them have some benefit.
Nice.
Nailed it.
Nice. However, yeah, one of the really sad things that I found out as well about what happens and what's really going on in industrial kind of bee production. I mean, the biggest producers are, like we said, China and Turkey as well. And in a lot of places, they will literally just kill off the whole colony of bees at the end of the season because it's not economically viable for them to keep the bees alive throughout the winter. So they'd rather just kill them all off and then get a whole new colony the next year, which is basically mass murder. And that's, I mean, imagine, like, if they have like 10, 20, 30 hives, 60,000 bees in every
That's
hive.
ridiculous.
I mean, the numbers are crazy.
They are crazy. And once again, the amount of the importance that they do have to our agriculture, it's just a shame. And I also think that a lot of people, they don't understand that. And this is why we're doing this podcast, to share this little information of you.
Yeah, I mean, the bees, they pollinate 70% of the fruit that we eat, that we find in the supermarkets, be it tomatoes, strawberries, all of these fruit and vegetables. We need the bees to pollinate them so that we can consume them as well. So it's way beyond honey. Also, another thing I found out was that even bees have gone into this selective breeding and the gene pool thing and the kind of genetically modified, and because they're looking for the bees that produce the most. So then it exposes them to disease like it does with inbred dogs and stuff like that. Their immune system's a lot weaker. So there's a lot of diseases that are spreading, and these bees are not living to their full lifespan, which is sad. So I'm from the UK. So in the UK, did you know that?
Oh, no.
Well,
Really?
now you do.
I thought you were French.
Well, just it's a very complicated story.
Okay. We'll leave that for another day.
Yeah. So according to the Vegan Society, which is a great website, by the way, I recommend you check it out. They have information about everything regarding veganism. It's literally like the first vegan. They invented the word vegan, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. The founder
I
of
was
the
wondering
vegan.
where the vegan came from. Actually.
Yeah, the founder of the Vegan Society, he was looking for a word, and there were some really odd suggestions. But in the end, they just took the word vegetarian and they contracted it into the beginning and the end of vegetarianism, and that became vegan.
Ooh, okay, got it.
So anyway, back to the bees, back to business.
Back to business.
In the UK, my country of origin, 95% of the honey consumed is imported from China and mainly Turkey, like I said. And obviously importing these things has a huge impact on our environment as well, a carbon footprint. So you got to think about this. It's like, if you're going to consume anything, like we mentioned this in the episode about alcohol as well, episode 2, ethical alcohol. If you haven't listened to it, do check it out. We mentioned about consuming locally, and that goes for everything. Even though we're advocating you consume honey, if you're going to consume any product, try and do it as locally as you can.
And you can check this out actually on buzzaboutbees.com. We'll put a link down below. And some beekeepers do remove all the honey from bees and only provide the sugar in return. And the sugar is obviously nowhere as near nutritious for the bees as the honey is. However, it's worth to mention that by remembering that these practices exist largely because of human demands that put pressure on beekeepers and bees to produce more. Because people wish to buy it from supermarkets, and many wish to buy it as obviously as cheaply as possible.
Yeah, I mean, they must have really bad teeth, these bees. Like, if you're replacing all the honey with sugar.
I'm trying to just not.
Yeah, they have teeth.
We knew that this was going to happen. There's going to be a lot of bee jokes.
Yeah, but there's a lot of benefits in it as well.
No, you took mine.
Oh, that was
That
yours?
was mine.
Oh, shit.
According to PETA.org, bees will actually never benefit from all her label, the queen itself. After the beekeepers steal all the honey from the hive, they keep the bees alive by feeding them sugary syrup. and other subpar nutrients, or just like you said, they kill the entire hive, and that could be all between 20,000 to 80.
Yeah. Whereas if in nature, when a new queen bee, I like the word queen bee. There's so many songs I could start singing, but I'm not going to do that. So when a new queen is about to be born, the old queen generally will take some of the hive members, she'll take some of her peat bees, and find a new habitat in which to start a fresh colony. So if you see like a swarm of bees flying around, simply they're just like they're on the move, like they're just moving house.
Royal patrol.
Yeah, literally. It's like there's a new queen bee in the house, so old queen bee has to leave and she's got to find
Follow
a new
the
place.
leader.
But they won't attack you unless they're threatened. So if you see loads of bees flying around, just let them. They're just house hunting.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people, they always think that they are these annoying little insects. They always find themselves into a soda can or into something sweet. But just let them do their business, and let them get on with it. Just as you get on with your own.
Yeah. And beekeepers, they don't want the queen bee to leave the hive, because if the hive is then devised, it decreases the honey production. So often what they do, which is awful, is they clip the wings of the queen, or they take her away, or they kill her, or they replace her after just 2 to 3 years, even though she could live up to 7 years. So it's horrible. You think
Really?
Yeah, bees can live up to 7 years, man. I mean, the queen. I don't think all the other ones can. We're focusing more on the bees than the honey in this episode.
Exactly.
Like,
But they are important,
I'm so fascinated, man.
We will get into, like I said, in the end, I will just share some fun facts as well about the bees itself and why it's so important to make sure that you leave the bees alone and do their job for themselves. The stressful and unnatural living conditions, malnutrition, and cruelty inherent in the factory farming weaken the bees' immune system, making them more susceptible to disease and less able to withstand the devastating impact of harmful pesticides.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we need to kind of look at the way we consume in general, because like we said, people always want everything as cheap as possible, and everything comes at a cost. And that comes the same with honey, it's the same with the clothing industry, which will be another episode. I reckon we'll get into that we've
got a lot of cover.
Yeah, we got so much content coming. You guys stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe.
Adding it to that, besides all of this, there are some health benefits and hazards in that sense. And in a 100-gram serving, honey provides roughly a 304 calories with no essential nutrients in significant content, composed of 17% water and 82% carbohydrates. And honey has a low content of fat, dietary fiber, and protein, and it is less bad sweetener.
So it's basically sugar. And people say honey's good for you, but it's just generally not as bad as processed sugar.
Yeah.
So it's only when you compare it to the rest of it that maybe people can see some of the health benefits from it. I mean, there has been some research showing that it can have an antibacterial and antifungal properties. It can help to heal wounds. It can serve as an antioxidant. It can soothe a sore throat. So it can have some health benefits, and it has been used for thousands and thousands of years for that. And obviously, whenever you find something in the wild that can heal you, you use it. But now we've taken that to a whole new level of consumption.
True.
People are using it on a daily basis, and so much of it.
Food and the coat things, and it's just become
honey barbecue, honey, God knows what.
Yeah, true. Honey mustard.
Which honestly, I was a big fan of honey mustard, but I will never eat it again.
No. I'm sure there must be vegan versions to do it as well. I mean, at the end of the day, the honey mustard is just basically sweetened mustard.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
We'll find
maybe
a way
we
to
should
do
make
that.
some.
We should try and do that, yeah, maybe. Good idea.
Anyway, it's very important that I think this, if anyone's going to remember anything from this podcast, whether or not they eat honey, this is information you share to people who do eat honey, is that if you give raw honey to infants, it can contain a harmful bacteria, and it can lead to poisoning called botulism poisoning, and it can be lethal for children, and in adults it generally gives you diarrhea, vomiting, can give you constipation. So it's not as serious in adults, and give you blurred vision as well. So, but be very careful with honey and infants. Just don't eat honey. No one eats honey. Everyone's happy, including the bees.
Including the bees. Yeah, but one thing that I always wonder is why do people tend to put honey in tea when they say they have a sore throat?
I think it's one of those like grandma recipe kind of
like
things.
a remedy sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's true. Because I've never had anyone actually explain it to me credibly why that is good for you.
There's a really interesting article actually in Forbes.com that we'll put a link to, and it's called "Honey is the World's Third Most Fake Food," and it's actually there's an extract of a book called "Real Food, Fake Food" by Larry Olmsted, and how in certain countries they cut honey with a much cheaper corn syrup, fructose syrup to enhance profit margins, as everyone does. So it's like cocaine, you know. It's like, you know, when they put baking soda in cocaine and all that stuff. It's like there's cartels, man, of honey. It's crazy.
Unbelievable. And it's like you wouldn't even question it, to be honest.
No, you think you're eating something natural, or but so this can be like very bad for your health because you don't know like what you're consuming.
You're just basically eating colored sugar.
Yeah, literally. And my favorite thing that I saw about honey was on actually Netflix. And there's a series called Rotten, which is about the food industry. And all their episodes are really interesting. And there's one, I think it's the first episode actually, that's about honey. And I would recommend you all do check it out.
So, do we have any alternatives like we have for a lot of other things when it comes to veganism and vegan foods?
Yeah, we can't tell people to stop eating something without providing equivalent, if not better, well, definitely better alternatives. So the most common one that people use is agave syrup. Also, I didn't know this, but you can actually buy a thing called bee-free honey, which is made from apples.
Nice.
And obviously fully vegan, which is very nice. Maple syrup is also a popular one.
That's a common one in the cupboard here.
Yeah, I like. It's quite expensive,
It is expensive.
But then again, that's the thing. You buy good products, it's expensive. People shouldn't consider their health as an expense. It's an investment in yourself.
Yeah, true. And another thing that we actually were talking, me and you, Max, were about bone char.
Yeah, this is something that literally blew my mind when I found out that sugar isn't vegan. Well, not all sugars are vegan, is the better way to put that. Is often it's filtered and it's refined. And the way they refine sugar and to get the color is they use bone char being kind of like from the bones of cattle that was slaughtered. And so they kind of like mash that all together. It helps to give the white color of the sugar, which is disgusting. So even though there's none of that in the end product, it's in the process. So it's ridiculous. I mean, why would you support something like that? Which it generally applies to white sugar, but even some brown sugars, because sometimes they make brown sugar the same way as white sugar, and then they just mix it with molasses, I think is what they call it, for the process for making sugar brown. So this is the part that I enjoyed the most preparing for this episode.
How can we help these little guys?
There's a lot that we can do, that everyone can do to help the wild bees, help them expand, help them grow, help them pollinate our flowers, help them pollinate all of our fruit and trees, and keep basically our planet healthy and alive. So what you can do is you can plant some beautiful flowers, some trees, sunflowers, lilac, lavender, cactuses. These will all provide the bees with nectar and pollen. There's
give them a little market.
Yeah, give them a lot of variety. You can plant herbs as well. They use that. Chives, sage, parsley. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all of the list. Even put it on your balcony if you have one. That can help to feed the bees.
Like mints,
and
basil.
Because you think you're doing the bees a favor.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they're helping keep your plants alive as well.
Yeah, so basically you're creating jobs for them. However, just don't take their excess or their rewards, what they work for. Because basically it's like it's like slavery. You're getting them to work hard for something that we're going to benefit from. So stop doing that.
Yeah, and they need it a lot more than we do. Like we've given alternatives. They need it to survive the winter. So I think we should just leave them in bees and let them keep their beeswax as well. Because a lot of people use the beeswax for beauty products and all this business, candles, but they use it to build the honeycombs as well. So there's absolutely no need. And also, I didn't know you could do this. You could create a bee bath.
I think that is not cute, but I think it is.
I want to create a bee bath.
It's sweet. I think it's really sweet as honey, man. Fill a shallow bird bath or any other small dish or bowl, whatever you want to put, with some clean water and put some pebbles and stones inside so they can poke out of the water. And the bees will land on the stones probably and pebbles to drink the water as they take a break from foraging and pollinating.
So it's like a pit stop for bees,
like a little playground.
Yeah. Another amazing website and resource you can use if you're into all this and you want to help the bees is Pollinatororg. They recommend different plants you can use for the bees, which ones not to use, how to make your bee bath and all that business. And most of all, don't use pesticides.
Yeah.
Avoid pesticides as much as you can. First of all, for your health, for the environment, and for the bees, because it poisons them.
Yeah.
As simple as that. And the main reason that the bees are dying today is because of the massive pesticides that are used in the agriculture today.
Yeah.
And saving bees means saving ourselves.
True. And just to get like an economical understanding of bees itself and how much, or bees and honey, how much it contributes to the economy. The US government has actually stated that the bees are dying of an alarming rate, and it's an economically unstable rate, as they say. In the United States alone, the bees contribute to an estimate around $15 billion in crop value. So without them, agriculture as we know it would just completely collapse. And what people usually today tend to like, oh, we don't like bees, and they get scared of them, and they are absolutely no threat to you if you just leave them alone.
Let them be.
Let them be. Literally, let them be. Let those poor creatures do what they are curious, just like any other animals. They're curious little species, and they are so important for our culture.
And if you behave, they will behave as well.
Behave. Okay, enough of this. They're responsible for much of the food on your plate. Bees, they perform a task that is so vital for the survival of agriculture, pollination that we mentioned earlier. And in fact, 1/3 of our global food supply is pollinated by bees. To just put this into context, these are many of the crops pollinated, which are almonds, apples, apricots, avocados, blueberries, cantaloupes, cashews, coffees, cranberries, cucumbers, eggplants, grapes, kiwis, mangoes, okra, peaches, pears, peppers, strawberries, tangerines, walnuts, and watermelons.
Don't forget to breathe.
Don't forget to breathe. All right, enough bee jokes. So how can we, what do we wrap up with this?
We need to kind of realize how important bees are to our society, and how we can support them in a sense is, if you can have a beehive, go for it. Just don't eat the honey, you know? Like, support what you can. I mean, if you're going to still continue to consume honey, then do it locally, even though we don't suggest you do. If you have the space to have a beehive at the end of your garden, do it. Plant some nice plants for them. Make a bee bath, most important. And I don't want to alienate people by talking about insects, because a lot of people, when you talk about veganism, they're obviously thinking about, I don't know, like pigs, cows, chickens, mammals, basically. And people are like, what, you guys talking about honey? You crazy? Well, I can't do that, so I'm going to give up on everything else. I mean, becoming vegan, it's a process. So if you consider that you can't go and stop honey straight away, I mean, every step you make towards becoming vegan is already great for your health, for the environment, and for the animals in general. These are just facts that you need to keep into mind and try and apply them as much as you can.
So this is basically just to give you the insight of the importance of the bees itself, and also the honey, that you are able to survive more without it than anything else. So make a conscious choice and consider alternatives, and let these hard workers benefit from their own reward.
And ultimately, just reduce the amount of sweetness you add to your food and drinks. You guys are all sweet enough.
All these people that are following us and listening, you guys have multiple options, and I'm sure you're able to manage.
Yeah, and it does take time. Like, if you like your tea very sweet, that you can reduce the amount you put, and then one day you'll get to the point where you don't put any sweetener at all into it, or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think we should wrap this up.
We should wrap this up, yeah.
It's been enough.
It's been enough. Thank you for tuning and listening to our 5th episode. It's been very interesting for both of us.
Yeah.
I hope for you as well.
I think you guys can hear our passion about this subject. We've really got involved in this bee business.
Bee business, and time flies, just like the bees. And make sure you guys behave out there.
We're almost behind schedule.
We are behind schedule. Thank you for tuning in.
We should buzz off now.
We should buzz off. I'm Eric.
I'm Max.
Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. We'll put the links below. And we hope you tune in for our next episode.
Yeah, we love hearing from you guys. Thanks to those of you who connected with us on Instagram, messaging us, suggesting content. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to hearing from you guys again very soon. Much love. Take care.
Peace out.
Peace out.